want to do an intro for this one? I fucking hate I hate starting them so much.
Good. Suffer. You got to play Astro Bot, so suffer. You get joy, yeah. I don't. This is penance. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi. Astro Bot just came out a little while ago, and it's crazy because we're recording this like 6 or 5 days before it comes out. So this is this is the only time ever that we're going to talk about something, and it's still going to be a little bit topical by the time this thing airs. It's fucking great, dude.
This is unprecedented, genuinely.
No, not only is it unprecedented, it is a fluke. It won't happen again. And so I'm just really going to try to enjoy it for the one time we're ever going to have this.
If it happens again, it's a cry for help. If it happens 3 times, we're already dead.
So I've been playing Astro Bot a lot.
Yes.
I have a small collection. I have a handful of thoughts. Mm-hmm. I think I'll start by just saying I'm surprised that I am enjoying it as much as I am. Not because I expected it not to be good, but because I know how this game was pitched to Sony. You know what I mean? I know the reason that this was greenlit, and it's not because talented small team that can make something that's really, really good and punch way above and fill a niche market. All of those are great, but those aren't the thing that the pitch was hinged upon.
Right.
I know in my heart of hearts that the actual reason that Sony was willing to fund this was because they get to pointing at every single IP they have and being, look how fucking awesome this is, over and over for an entire video game duration.
Yeah, you're speculating that they looked at the team size, they saw the budget, they said look at what you spend on advertising elsewhere. This is a marketing expense.
Exactly, because that's what Astro Bot was for the first 2 times too. The first time it was a way of marketing the PlayStation VR. The second time it was a way of marketing the hardware of the PlayStation 5. The third time it's a way of marketing the entire PlayStation intellectual property catalog.
The multiverse.
Yeah, but this time people pay for it too. It's like a win-win-win-win-win for Sony, especially if you wear a suit and are the kind of person I would like to head explode. And yet
here you are.
And yet it's really good. Yeah. I feel strange about it because the more I look at this thing, the more I feel like I should be irritated by it, because in the hands of any other studio or funded by any other thing, I feel like it would have been infinitely more cynical in its execution. Right? I mean, what's that fucking Gears of War Funko Pop game that got announced a few years ago? Is that out? Does anyone give a shit?
I purged it from my memory and now you brought it back, and so now thanks.
That could have that exists and is a thing, and this is the polar opposite of that.
Right.
And it's just, there's a good version of this, and I'm still just trying to come to terms with that, that you can just throw 5 billion IP at something and it's not the worst fucking thing ever.
Yeah, and it's not only that, but that, I mean, you already said it, that was necessary.
Yeah.
It's not just a thing that you have to look past. It's the reason that this was able to be made in the first place.
Yeah.
It's the
100%.
Power of IP, TM. It's the thing that they're always talking about on those big stages.
The reason that this game got the budget that it did is almost certainly because they were willing to pitch this as a celebration, and if Celebration wasn't getting all of the people in suits on board, then, just straight up calling it an advertisement of all of their IP is just a really, really fucking good pitch. Yeah. That will make a board of directors so happy.
They'll all clap and they'll tilt back in their seats and they'll rock back and forth.
They kick their little feet up in the air and they giggle to themselves.
Yeah, I'm imagining their chairs are all just way too high up because they're competing to be who looks the tallest. And so it's just kind of really embarrassing whenever they're all really on board with something. Anyway, this is not based on anything real. Actually, no, changed my mind. All of that,
it is.
I've seen that happen. Yeah, that's why they call them chairmen, is because they tilt back and forth.
Yeah.
I was just curious, so what has grabbed you so much about Astro Bot?
It is Super Mario Galaxy 3.
Huh. All right. I had no further questions, Your Honor. Are we good?
No, it's...
Thanks for listening.
Have you played you've played the Mario. I assume you've played a Mario in your day.
I have. I've played half of Super Mario Galaxy 1 and half of Super Mario Galaxy 2. So on average, that's still half.
What's fucking wrong with you? Well, what is actually wrong with you? You played one of those and you didn't finish it?
I was a child.
You played both of those and you didn't finish. Then you were primed to finish it. You had all the time in the world and you had nothing stopping you.
I said I did half of one and I did half of the other. That's one game.
No whimsy in your life. You would hate Astro Bot.
Honestly, that's why I stopped playing it, is because I was like, this is going to max me out. I was like, I'm already so full of whimsy. That's why I don't have a PS5.
You played it and you were like, this is not badass enough. This is so fucking... Mario is too happy. Yeah. I need to know what would happen if he was like pissed off.
I wish he had a gun and was doing a rampage through San Francisco or whatever that shadow...
You would love Jack 2.
Oh, right. They did do that.
They did do that. It was fucking
does
badass.
Astro Bot ever have a gun? Does he ever become awesome?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, shit.
Yeah.
Hang on, go to Amazon right
now. Spoilers for Astro Bot. So here's the thing, right? Is that it's so fucking like, again, I am continually blown away at how hard they lean into the IP and how it never outstays its welcome, because it feels at all times like a genuine celebration rather than a cynical inclusion.
Right. It's like you're describing, when you make the Super Mario Galaxy comparison, is part of that where, like, it's the same with all other Mario games, like where every galaxy has its own concept, whatever bullshit. This is like that, but all the concepts are drawn from Sony IPs, and somehow they land that.
Mostly. Most of the new ideas come from Sony IPs. They're like takes on it, recontextualized into a platforming context. But like the old ones, like especially enemy design, I played the PS5. I played Playroom, but I didn't play the VR game. But I assume these enemy designs have been around since then for the most part, and a lot of them are just like, oh, this is a Goomba. This is a Koopa. Okay, or like kind of, not exactly, but very close.
Right.
Like even down to like small round thing that waddles on 2 feet. Like, you know, it's very clear what they're pulling from in terms of like the core of how this works.
Yeah.
You're talking about the gun thing. At the end of each like galaxy that they have, there's like 5 or I think 6. I don't know. I'm still playing it. At the end of each one, there's a boss battle, and then there's like a reward bonus entire level for beating the boss. And it's just the entire level is themed around, not just themed around, but there's a mechanic that they introduce, and it's like a one-time thing based on a particular game or franchise.
Right.
And the third one is Uncharted. So you're just Nathan Drake for an entire level, and they give you like a dart gun, and so the entire game shifts to accommodate for that.
Right.
And it is shocking how well they are able to adapt to the design each time. But like that wouldn't have been as joyous as it was if it weren't for the fact that like. Again, there's so many cynical ways that you could execute on something like that, but they chose specifically Uncharted 1, like which is already like a really weird choice. Like you could have. Like there are so many shooter games, and even if you're gonna like, of course, Uncharted is an easy pick, but like the first one is by far the worst one. It's not even close. That one fucking sucks, and like they are showing off so much genuine love for it. It is a full thing of homages specifically to moments from the first game the entire way through. It's strange. Who loves this game? I didn't know anyone loved that game, but apparently the guys who worked on Astro Bot really do.
Right.
And like, and what sells this for me is the fact that, like, you know, they could have opened with this. This could have been like one of the first like climaxes, but no, this is halfway into the game. You could not guess what the first one of these is. The first time they do this, like a proper homage in the form of an entire video game, is fucking oh god, what's it called?
Sounds like you can't even guess. Shit, this is a good one.
It's shut up. It's fucking Ape Escape.
Holy shit!
It's an entire goddamn thing, and it's Ape Escape.
Oh my god. I never thought I'd see the day.
That's such a weird pull. Yeah, I mean, I could go on, but it's just the specific IP that they're pulling from is like the biggest tell that it is not mandated in terms of from Sony in terms of what they're doing, because it's a scattershot. They're including basically everything. Like, you'd be hard pressed to think of one thing that does not at least get referenced in here. But like, if I would think of the biggest money makers for Sony, it's absolutely not the ones that they chose to focus on first and foremost. It is like there's a very clear bias in terms of what would translate well into a gameplay gimmick and what they just want to do. Even the DLC, right? Like, I got the physical version of the game, and you get like a little, they call it pre-order bonus, whatever, who gives a fuck. It's just Parappa the Rapper as a costume. Like, what the fuck? Really? You're not gonna go with, like, I don't know, Kratos?
Haze?
Really? Oh, Haze. So true. Dude, if they don't have Haze in here, I haven't found any Haze references yet. I'm going to be so fucking pissed if it doesn't make it in.
Yeah, that's at least 1 point knocked off the review score, to be completely honest, right there.
If they don't let me fucking chug nectar for an entire level, I'm going to be fucking livid, dude.
I mean, it's interesting because, like, again, I'm completely projecting here, but the idea of, like, the Uncharted games, like 2 through 4, are, like, widely accepted as, like, good games. Decent, solid, functional games. And so going to the first one, which was like the most janky initial entry as a game designer, in my head, sounds more fun. Partly because there's more extrapolation that you get to do, but also just because the story of that game is just like, of the game's development, is like they tried really, really hard and ground themselves and their employees into dust, and it had to go out the door, and they weren't ready for the challenges, and people largely forgot about it. It was really like the second game is the one that turned Uncharted into an actual franchise. And
it's because Uncharted 2 is the game they were trying to make the whole time.
Exactly. And so, like, being able to focus on the moment before that is... It makes me smile. It makes me smile in concept in my head.
No, it's... it's a very interesting decision that they made, but it also makes sense in the context that they chose to go with, because it's a lot more simple. Uncharted 2 is varied, you go a lot of different places. There's a heavy emphasis on scripted moments. Uncharted 1 is not that. It is mostly a shooting gallery, which is much easier to design around and recontextualize. There is only, like, I think 2 sequences in that whole long ass level that are just like, oh, you gotta run. No, there's one long moment where it's like, oh, it's a thing you gotta run away from, and it's a like scripted moment. The rest is just platforming and like shooting guys,
right?
Which makes sense. That is both what Uncharted 1 is for the most part, and easier to make. Yeah. But they get a fuckload of mileage out of it at the same time, because I mean, Uncharted 1 is mostly you're in a jungle, right? But considering the constraints, Naughty Dog managed to get a lot of mileage out of the variety of that setting, and condensing that all into like 1 10-minute experience it's just really smart. It's really, really smart.
Hell yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot about it that I'm just trying to wrap my head around as I play. Like, I remember the Jason Schreier article just came out, and I haven't read it because I host a podcast. But the title, which is, of course, the most important part, emphasizes that people, that like one of the keys to this working out was a small team, which, go fucking figure, right? But I'm still trying to figure out how small of a team that actually is, because there's so much shit in this game, Sam. Mm-hmm. You know how Mario Galaxy is like, oh, every level, it's like, we revisit motifs every so often, but there's a lot of variety.
Yeah.
This one is so much more than that. Basically, every single level is a completely different theme. It never repeats the same thing twice. It's mostly unique assets from what I can tell every single time. And there's like 8 levels per galaxy, of which there are at least 5, I think 6 or maybe more.
Right.
It's so much. There's an entire system of collectibles for every single unique IP that a little robot like cosplays as. Yeah. And like every single one of them has at least one, usually more unique animations to go along with it that are like unlockables.
Right.
Do you have any idea how many animations that is? It's so fucking 5. Much work. It's so much work. It's insane. But it never feels like a concession. There are plenty of bits that feel elegant in their execution, like if a bunch of characters need to create a bridge, then they will use the same set of animations that's used if they need to make a very tall building or whatever. You know, they can recontextualize things in sneaky ways, but it never feels like a cut corner. It's perfectly scoped. I'm not used to seeing this on AAA scales anymore, unless it's made by Nintendo. Like this, this shouldn't exist. It's so fucking weird.
Nintendo obviously having no history of issues and problematic development processes.
Yeah, well,
Majora's Mask is a great game.
I don't know what you're implying.
I don't either.
I don't know. Something just came over me.
Yeah.
I just got really defensive. I just want everyone to remember that Nintendo, like, they're just the best ones out here.
I have now read the Jason Schreier article. And so, by the way, I'm giving you the information that you need. So, like, don't ever support journalists. All right. Don't look this up. Don't click on the link. Yeah. Don't follow him on Twitter.
Fuck Bloomberg. Fuck Bloomberg. Everything they've ever worked on. I've never read one article.
I don't even know how to read. But if I had to guess what these symbols mean, 60 people, 3 years is the development team for Astro Bot. And most of them, like the team has been around. Most of the people working there, maybe not most, a lot of the people working there have been around for like a decade, according to this article. Which is like
60 people.
Yeah.
That's so this game is so big.
Yeah, it's very odd.
Okay.
I don't know what they're thinking there, because they could have like made that 200 people and they could have like fired all of them after every game release.
Yes!
I don't really know what they're thinking.
Yes!
Doesn't quite make sense.
No, I'm thinking about it. No, you know what? No, this does make sense, because this entire game is built off of technology that they've been iterating upon since the first VR game. So yeah. But like that makes sense. That makes sense because there's a lot less time to.
You finish up. I have like problems.
They don't have to have like a lot of, whenever we talk about video game turnaround times, a lot of what we would normally expect to come with like the reason you need so many people, or the reason that we think we need so many people, and that's a solution. The reason it isn't efficient is because people have to spend time learning internal tools, and development studios have to spend a lot of time iterating upon those tools in order to achieve new things, especially if they're doing something they haven't necessarily done before. But this is well-trodden territory for this team by now, and so all of the work they've been doing seems to be iterative, especially since they've already shipped on this exact console before. So like,
yeah, but that's fucking. Here's the situation, right? You hire some people, they create a whole bunch of technology, they build rapport, and they have like full expertise on the thing that they just built, and now you want to make another one. Why would you not just fire all those people and then let the next guys figure it out from scratch? Because that's the fun part. Because that's fun. Swarm.
No, it's because like they don't know what to do, and then like eventually they will, and like that's crazy. And then they get to do it again next year.
It's about
it's like a fun thing. Listen, Sam, tell me that you don't like learning new things.
I love learning and I love growing.
We're doing them a favor.
We're doing them, yes.
Otherwise, they'd be stuck stagnating at the same fucking place forever. No one wants that.
What would they be doing? Growing into new roles inside the studio? You don't want that.
You call it stability. I call it stagnation.
Exactly. I want people just continually growing into pretty much the same place that they would have been before,
but like in a different place.
Yeah, they can.
So
do that
it's like better.
I don't fucking care. Yeah. No, it's like, I don't know. It's very cool to read all of this, and it also makes me feel insane because all of this stuff has felt like common sense from the inside, especially with like that being modeled very heavily by certain other studios, and seeing the response to that be very negative like sometimes in the industry. And now it's just like, oh, I guess this was like the reasonable thing to do the whole time, and it does scale.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I still don't think that most people, both in and out of the industry, have fully internalized that yet.
Definitely.
Yeah, there's a reason that this article was titled with that as like the opening statement. It's because this is clearly not like the reason Schreier pitches the idea of like small team, most of them been around for a while, great rapport, as like the hook is because that's not normal. That's surprising to a lot of people.
Yeah. No, I mean that's
the more I think about that, the more I'm right there with you. I do feel fucking insane.
Yeah, it's like I feel like anyone who's ever worked on a class project knows that, like, should know that, like, if you get a bunch of random people together, you don't know how that's gonna. It's much easier if you like are working with a bunch of people that you already know you work well with. There's oh my god,
it's crazy how like we turn like the classic origin stories of like the old legendary video games. We turn them into myths, and we love retelling the stories of how these absolute classics came to be. And the story's always the fucking same, you know. It's a small group of people who are really talented and who have at least done one or two things together before and know how to work well with each other, pushing the boundaries and making something new and exciting. Because they all want to do that. And then at some point we just stopped doing that. We just kind of got bored of that.
There's
and then started asking each other collectively, why aren't there more like great little games anymore? What fucking happened to that? Games aren't good anymore, Sam.
No, it's like there's the run up of like the two kind of embarrassing small dinky projects, and then they do the big one, and it's like, wow, that really came out of nowhere. We should not heed any of this information.
I hate Gollum, the video game.
I love Gollum, and I love Concord, and I love fuck, dude, I was actually one of the people who was like, I'm gonna play it next week, and then they shut it down because I was like, I was genuinely fucking waiting. It was just $40. I just wanted to like, I was busy, and I was like, I'll just buy this after, funny. And they fucking shut it down. What the hell?
You're never gonna know what it was like. I mean, it'll come back. They're gonna relaunch it. There's too much sunk cost. They're gonna try to like defibrillate it, but you're never gonna know what it was like on launch.
Yeah, let's hope. Let's hope they bring Concord back, because if I have to live in a world where if I never play Concord, I'm actually gonna have to start.
Sony, listen, double or nothing. Let's go. Come on.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's it is like, this is far from a novel observation, but I hear that people like having their own opinions repeated at them at podcasts. It is really funny that like Concord and Astro Bot came out within the same period, because they are such polar opposites from a production standpoint. It's like we spent 8 years trying to become the gigafuck game in an incredibly saturated genre. By the time we were done, the moment had passed, even if we like, there's other issues with the game as far as like visual identity and all of this stuff, that kind of like everything, what was it, like Rio said, like everything unique about the game disappears the second that you get past the character creation screen. And it's not that like the work is bad, it's just that it's like it self-homogenizes in a way. It's very strange. Like there's a bunch of interesting little ideas that look like they've been sanded off over and over and over again by focus groups and the better part of 8 years of iteration to the point of, you know, meaninglessness. Yeah, it was disappointing, because like the core idea of NASA whatever space age hero shooter is not something I'm opposed to at all, but like what is the hook for that? Like it's not even like, I don't know, I was looking for like a split gate type thing that's like, here's our core thing that changes the gameplay formula, and the thing I expected that to be based on the log line was like, at the very least, we do fucky shit with gravity, and we have like a lot of verticality or something because we're in space and we're on different planets or whatever. Just anything, but they just
don't fucking do anything with it.
And I feel horrible for all the developers who are like building up to this big launch. And the only time I ever heard Concord talked about it was in the context of a joke about how someone wasn't going to play Concord.
Yeah,
and the music was written by the Spider-Verse guy. So we're in a. It's like, just, and then Astro Bot came.
Nothing much to add. This is, as you have said, far from a novel observation, but man, I have to wonder what this has changed about internal Sony decision making.
I mean,
for this, like, this is not something that only outsiders have noticed.
This isn't something that only outsiders
no one is more sharply no one is more sharply aware of the bitter irony of this situation than the people in charge of these financial decisions.
Okay, so I'm gonna preface this by saying that like nothing that I'm about to say should be taken as like having any inside knowledge of Sony or whatever bullshit, blah blah blah. I would be curious if that's even true, because these are two very different categories of bet for Sony to make. Like Concord is big live service, whatever, fucking forever game. Astro Bot is like tiny single player experience. I would be curious if that just seems like two incomparable things. Like these are just two completely separate phenomena.
Yeah, I mean, they're clearly. I'm sure they're operating on completely incomparable financial scales, right? I mean, like Astrobot was to create in terms of.
I'm talking about just like in terms of how the executives perceive and categorize them. Is like, does that difference make them not comparable in terms of like coming to any new conclusion about production processes? Because I think it's
I'm sure that they would. I'm sure that they would like correctly identify that this is not exactly an apples to oranges comparison. Concord is not targeting the exact same demographic as Astrobot. But with that said, I think that the closeness in which they were released and the amount of public discourse directly comparing them makes this pretty hard to avoid, especially like because I mean like these people they pay attention to focus groups. Marketing is constantly paying attention to what people are saying. They can't not know these things work their way up. Like even if the people who are in charge of making decisions of allocating money to different projects would not agree with the comparison, it cannot at this point be lost on them, and that has to do something in terms of your mentality. I don't know if it's a negative reinforcement. A lot of people would take this and be like, fucking, we got to prove them wrong. Concord can work. If we're going to make it work. The only thing I'm confident in is that there is no way this hasn't changed something about the way that Sony views this. It's too significant of a weird thing to have happened for that not to be the case.
I think it's too soon. I think that companies change slowly, and while this was a very pointed example, it's like rhetorically pointed. It's not necessarily.
I don't mean the company just changed. I mean that a few people within the company have probably just shifted a little bit because of this.
Hopefully, yeah.
You can't have just a cartoonishly large failure paired next to a cartoonishly large unexpected success and not have that live rent free in people's minds for a while.
You're very optimistic. We'll see what happens.
I guess so. Uncharacteristic of me, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just what Astrobot is doing for me.
The thing that I'm most interested in with Concord that I feel like you only get little mentions of is like, I'm actually, the one thing that I was hoping would come out of this cancellation that hasn't is not just like people putting Astrobot and Concord next to each other, but like when a project gets canceled and people scatter, that sucks a lot for the people inside. That's like an obvious statement, but like genuinely, like for more than a minute and just being like, oh yeah, that would suck. Like imagine working on something, even if it is Concord, whatever you think about Concord, for 8 fucking years every day, and it's putting so much effort and time into it. Because again, if there's one thing that Concord does have in spades, it's a lot of effort and a lot of time put into it. Whether you agree with the direction that went or not, but it's like, and then having it just drop out in such a spectacular way and become a footnote in like a week, and then have people make all of the jokes that we just made about it, like that, and then just having to like move on to the next one. Like, how do you go through that repeatedly and stay emotionally invested in the work that you're doing? Like, how do you expect to like go through that process repeatedly? Because like Concord is an anomaly in scale and comedy factor, but it's not an uncommon occurrence that products fail out, and it is deeply demoralizing.
Sony is trying to pull a No Man's Sky. They're trying to do a Cyberpunk where they put $1 billion.
Have they stated that publicly?
Yes, the announcement said we are taking this down and we will relaunch it. We are going to workshop this. We are going to put it back out whenever we think it's ready for they're not done with it. They haven't just cut their losses. When I said a double or nothing, that wasn't an abstract joke. That might be what happens. It depends on how much longer they put it back in the oven. But yeah, no, I mean, but that also probably complicates the feelings of the people who worked on it. Something that I'm really curious about is what their initial launch cycle looked like and how that changed with the reception, right? Because usually the way these things work is once they're done building the thing and they switch from, version 1.0 to a live service post-launch support system, my understanding is that the teams tend to scale down a little bit because, you don't need as many people doing a live service thing as you do building the main thing. And even if you do, it tends to be a slightly different looking team of people because building a game is not the same as adding things to a game. All this to say, this is all speculation, by the way. This is not necessarily true and it varies from project to project. But all of this to say that I would have assumed that they fired a bunch of people once Concord launched. And it launched so bad that they took it back. They said, take backsies. Actually, no. We're going to work on it some more. How many of those people who were fired just got offered jobs to come back versus how many people are they just onboarding again now to start the cycle anew? How much of this team is the same as it was when they were building it? What does that look like? What kind of hell are these people living in right now?
I don't know. I don't know if anyone was fired that quickly after the launch of this game or whether there were
no one knows
contract expirations. Honestly, I don't feel comfortable speculating about that in detail.
No, I don't want to. I bring this up because I'm fascinated that there's no answer to this question that isn't awful. It's just like this, you just have different flavors of miserable experience for these people. It is either someone who just worked on the better part of an 8-year cycle, and it's like everyone fucking hates it, but I guess I'm free. And then the goddamn they get an email. And it's like you've got a seat back if you want it. And now you just have to sit here and ask yourself, do I fucking want that? Do I want to go back? Or the person who is not, who has never worked on Concord before, but knows its reputation now, but they need a job.
Sony
and Concord is hiring.
I am available. If you have any support studios in Canada, I will work on Concord. I will fucking please. I'll be
working
one
on Concord in order to get Canadian citizenship is one of the funniest fucking things I can think of.
I'll go on fucking Office Depot and I'll have them print out. I'll already start printing out my business cards. I'll draw it on a shirt.
Sony, you've got a PR problem. Us two, we're all about this.
Asus, get back here. We've got an idea. Honestly, the thing that I could not get out of my head the entire post-launch period of Concord was kind of the opposite of that. Was at the very least on the infrastructure side, gearing up for launch for a live service big project is that's a big fucking deal. Is there's a whole discourse about how it's just make multiplayer games available for everyone with the servers, dedicated servers, and it's we're not getting into that just this instant, but part of the reason that is so challenging on a technical level is that when you're making a gigafuck live service, whatever bullshit game, you are not dealing in the realm of dedicated service. You're dealing with teams of people building out software that is designed to run those specific game servers on their specific server infrastructure that they have. It has to be so exact. There's so much effort that goes into it, and then it always crashes on launch anyway because of crazy shit. Even when you run the betas and the overall, there's so much, and so I just cannot. Because the thing that I could not get out of my head was the idea of being someone on the server infrastructure team for Concord and putting all of this effort and getting ready for the dam to be fucking battered, and then the gates open and there's 60 people playing. And you just, it's fuck, dude.
You're ready for the dam to break, and instead you get 40 gallons of water.
Yeah, a devastating anticlimax. And it's just I don't even, I'm so curious. What the experience of like the on-call engineers were for that, just not getting called. Just
I mean, watching. The most disconcerting unofficial vacation I can imagine, I guess.
Yeah. No, it was yeah. So besides Concord, you mentioned that there was
I was gonna say I can think of one other example that mirrors this, and that's Onrush. Remember when we talked about Onrush?
Oh,
that one's really cruel though, because Evolution Studios made Drive Club first, and that one was notorious for its launch problems, like cataclysmically, like about as bad as it gets. That isn't like, okay, it's not literally as bad as it gets, but like, it's bad whenever most of the headlines about your game during its launch week are about how no one can play it.
Yeah.
And like, obviously that left the team traumatized. And so when they made their next one, and it was also like very online focused, the servers were one of their biggest focuses. And they were they put a lot of time in the promotional material into talking about how they were prepping for this, and then no one fucking played Onrush. So they sure didn't have problems. I bet they didn't have problems.
That is wow. That is painful. That is painful.
Yeah. On an unrelated note, I have been continuing the Asus conversations. I'm really into the video game thing. I really want to do that, but also I have been saying for a very long time that if I could come up with an excuse to just make silly car video with no pretense, and just like have a 3D model of a car and just make it go on the screen for like 5 minutes, I would take that opportunity. But the problem has always been trying to figure out a narrative justification for that, right? Because it's like, how do you, like, it's hard enough because I'm not a writer. And I think that's like the biggest failure of the Dying Light video, is that none of us are very good writers, and so that video wasn't written very well. But now you put that into something that's like even more heavily action based, and it's harder to play it for a laugh. It's a difficult premise in my mind to execute on. And then you add on to that the fact that it's a branded thing. And the nightmare version of this, in my mind, is a version wherever we have an interesting idea and we just have to like shoehorn a laptop into the plot for no reason. It's just the worst fucking thing ever. Like, genuine nightmare scenario. But the demon keeps calling to me, and I've been listening lately, and I don't know, man. It's getting hard, especially as it's becoming more obvious that the video game pitch is a stretch in its current version to get approved, and the animation thing is a comparatively easy sell. It's getting really hard to not think about it a lot. And I had a realization recently, and it's so fucking obvious. I feel so stupid for not thinking about this earlier, but the biggest hitching point is with the way that I was approaching the project, right? I kept saying, if I'm going to do this, I don't want it to be story focused. I don't want there to be like a big focus on narrative, right? Because that's not one of my strengths. I want to play to my strengths with something like this. And yet, the first thing that I would always do in trying to figure this out is like, okay, what's a good premise? How do I figure out how to make this work? What's a justification for the action on screen? And what I realized is that I'm fucking stupid. Because, like, if you don't want it to be narrative focused, then why the fuck are you starting with the narrative every time? But I've never worked on a project where that's not the starting point, right? Like, projects that I work on always start with a script. It always has to have a narrative structure, even for, like, the YouTube videos, right? Like, you and I, every time we start on one, the goal is to walk people through like an emotional arc through, like, there's a story that we have to find when we work on them.
Even on the basic level of like set things up and then pay them off, whether it's information or jokes or both.
I'm kind of just mad at myself at how long it took to figure out that that's not actually necessarily the right way to approach every single creative project.
Right. And then, and then because that led you to ask people first, what would be a good narrative for a car video? There's no room for anyone to help you come to that realization. shit.
Yeah,
Wow,
exactly. Because this took me like over a year to figure out, Sam. And it's like, this wasn't even a problem with the video game thing, because obviously, like, who the fuck starts designing who the fuck who's sane starts working on a video game by thinking about the narrative?
Yeah,
that's
fuck
not
writers.
like you. Yeah, fuck you. Fuck you if you've ever written for a video game. But like, that's not usually how these things start. Video games are not usually designed exclusively to tell narratives. They start by like, what's an interesting, fun thing you can do, and then a narrative is wrapped around that. Right. That's what I should have been fucking doing. That's what I was thinking of doing with the video game pitch. Why did I not think about this?
Yeah.
See, that's how my week has been.
Damn. Well, do you have your idea for like things that you would want to do? Because what you're describing is how I'm imagining Fast and the Furious 9 came to be. Because that was a movie watching experience where I just thought to myself, wow, they really had a lot of ideas.
Yeah, I mean,
this is a ninth ass movie.
I'm gonna be brave, and I'm gonna say that I think that's the only way that you make a good Fast and Furious movie. That's the 9th Fast and Furious movie.
Yeah,
that's like that's the only way you get away with it, is by just being like, what if we did this shit? And everyone in the writers' room is like, that's so fucking stupid. Write it down right now.
Someone brought in a bunch of magnets, and then they just went to town on a bunch of toys for a while, and then boom, script. That movie was so fucked up to watch, having missed the first 8 minutes of. I went to one of my strongest memories ever watching a movie was like, I remember I was watching and I had to pee, and I was like, there's nothing happening during this part, and I timed it. I looked at my fucking phone, and I was gone, and I was pissing for less than 2 minutes, and when I left, they were walking around, and when I got back, they were just in space. They were just in the car in space. And I missed the opening, so I guess they fucking set that up somewhere. But to me, it just felt like it came out of absolutely nowhere. They were just sitting in the car in space, and I just had to be on board with it because the movie wasn't going to wait for me. There's a scene where they just like, it's one of the few pure dialogue scenes in the entire movie, and it's just two characters, and one of them's going like, it's crazy. We just went through all that shit, and it's like neither of us even have a scratch on us. It's like we both look identical to the way that we did before all that fucked up shit happened. And it's like this happens repeatedly. It's almost like we can't die anyway, and they just move on. They just, for no fucking reason, they have a scene that walks the characters an inch away from realizing that they're in the Fast and Furious 9 and then leave off. You could cut that scene and nothing would fucking change. That was a choice. It is one of my it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, why did you watch Fast and Furious 9 in the theaters, Sam?
It was playing.
Okay. Did you go alone?
No. It's a bunch of friends. We all went to the theater and we watched Fast and Furious 9.
Okay,
because it was there.
Because I was picturing you just walking down the street,
Julian.
I had a vision of you just walking down the street, and you pass by a theater and you see Fast and Furious 9, and you think about how you'd have no idea about anything that happened through Fast and Furious 1 through 8 or the spin-offs, and you're like, all right. And then that's just kind of what you spend the next 2 hours of your doing. You walk out and you're like, well, I don't know what the fuck that was about.
Yeah. I walked out a changed man. By the way, I know what it was about. Too. It was about cars.
Oh,
fuck you.
Okay. Right, okay. Because I've only seen Fast and Furious 1 and 2, and the first one is about cars, and the second one is about, like, a bisexual couple.
Right.
So
that's
like
beautiful.
We should watch Fast and Furious 2 sometime. I watched a video essay online, and it told me that secretly Fast and Furious 2 is like a bisexual romance movie. Mm-hmm. And they were right, and it's kind of fucking crazy because it's not. That's not what's happening. But if you go in and like you read it that way, that's absolutely what's happening, and it's fucking awesome. The movie's twice as good if you just choose to read it that way.
I'm excited. You're starting to sell me on it.
I'm not going to spend more time on this, but I will just say I was shocked at just how true it rang, because suddenly like the weirdly almost like verging on homophobic teasing that the two main characters did to each other, just a whole new dynamic came on. Like God. Little knowing glances that they pass each other just feel so different if you choose to. It's perfect. It's really just incredible.
Yeah, I've been very, very hesitant to watch any of the other Fast and Furious movies in order to preserve the sanctity of my Fast and Furious 9 experience. But
no, I think if anything, it will elevate it. If anything, it will elevate it because, like, you. Obviously, they did not start that crazy. You have no idea just how tame these movies really are. And knowing where we were at with number 2 is going to make number 9 feel even more absurd. Because, like, it has almost none of the same characters. Right. The stakes are infinitely lower. It is a different genre of movie entirely. They have nothing in common.
Yeah.
It's just funny. I think it will be even funnier for you if you just are thinking about number 9 while watching it.
Right. Okay, I'm down. We'll do it.
You're watching like future astronauts, and they're just like having a love dispute for an hour and a half.
And then at some point in between, it's about family, and then later it's about space, and then before it's about.
I'm pretty sure number 2 is one of the only ones that's actually not really about family.
Huh. Wow.
I could be wrong on that.
Breaking ground.
Not
Let's
really.
say some more wrong things.
Yeah. No. What is that thing you asked earlier about the car idea?
Oh yeah, I was asking like what kind of ideas you had already, but maybe you're too early for this. Maybe you're just like basking in the realization that you can just have ideas for car thing.
You know, it is very early days, and all I can really say about it is the hypothetical talks I've had with Eli and Pixel so far. If there's one thing that has me really excited, besides the fact that I get to play toys with fake cars on a computer, it's the idea that I will be pushing both of them artistically in a direction I don't think they've fully explored before, which is really fun to be able to do as a job, you know? Mm-hmm. Like Pixel's whole thing is like, it's like retro coded, but a lot of the way that his stuff looks is very much like the thing you could only properly achieve in the way that he does it with modern hardware using Blender. Mm-hmm. And so if we try to really stick to the aesthetics of an older video game, then there's a lot of stuff that he will need to learn about what kind of quirks go into creating a car model that could have reasonably ran performantly on a PS2, right? Mm-hmm. Likewise, some of the tools we're going to need to build something like this at scale, especially in like, you know, quickly and efficiently making roads and tracks and environments. That's not stuff that Blender just has built in, and even add-ons aren't necessarily going to do what we need out the box. Eli has already said, "Oh yeah, I can just build that," because of course, fucking sure. But I am extremely interested to see what that looks like. Like if I tell them, okay, so we need to make something that it's like a track, and you could just draw a curve on a plane, and it's a track now. But also it can do like crazy ass loops, and it can like do like a shoelace thing if I wanted to, or it can be like a funnel or some shit. Like if I wanted to get silly, I also need to be able to do that very easily. Just make that. Just do something that's that. Thanks. How the fuck are they gonna just do that? Because I know they can. That's the thing. I know that they are able to do it, but I don't know what that looks like. And I think there's something scary about it because I don't know how long this will take. This is different from the Dying Light thing because we're going to be doing it almost entirely, if not entirely, in 3D, right? And that's not a workflow I'm as familiar with, so it's harder to gauge the turnaround time and give an informed guess to Asus about that. I got to be budgeting for things I don't know as much about. It's more risky for me.
Good luck. Shit. Yeah, no, you're fucked. You're fucked.
Thanks, man.
Good talk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll just scrap it.
Yeah.
Let's make Let's Plays next year. can make more fucking money doing that anyway.
And what's great about Let's Plays is that it's just such a burgeoning, unsaturated market, and it's like
evergreen.
I know. Yeah. We're already pushing it with this podcast in terms of like reducing the quality of our output. We're just like, fuck it, why not? No. Yeah, no, Eli's an actual goddamn wizard put on this earth. So I have no question in my mind that they'll be able to pull it off either, and I am curious what that will look like. It's interesting to like. This is obviously like not a direction that I can add to, but like when mourning the potential loss of the game direction, at least for now in this form, is interesting. I revisited an outline for a video that I wrote ages ago because I went to a film festival thing and I got to watch Conor O'Malley's Rap World, and Conor O'Malley showed up and he took questions and he didn't answer them. He didn't answer a single question in a way that was like remotely helpful. And it was very intentional and very funny. Do you know who I'm talking to? Conor O'Malley?
Not by name. You're gonna have to refresh my memory a bit. What's he worked on?
You ever watched Endorphin Port?
No.
You'll hang on. I'm going to send you a picture. This is really good for the podcast, by the way.
Yeah.
But you'll recognize him. Everyone,
don't worry. We do it on PST all the time. Everyone's favorite podcast.
Hell yeah! Everyone, open up your phone browser right now.
We'll just show you. That is one of my biggest pet peeves about PST is that people will just go into the chat and just send GIFs to make each other laugh, and like, while we're recording, that's just an accepted behavior in there. It drives me fucking crazy. Yeah, it is fun. What the fuck do you tell a listener about that? Like, oh yeah, the horse spins real quick and then he goes up and it looks really real, but like I don't know if it is.
You just got to kind of throw adjectives like big horse, bug eye, close to lens, looking concerned.
Yeah, no. Now you're just thinking about that Twitter account I keep posting about.
I am thinking about that Twitter account that you keep posting about. Anyway, this is Conor O'Malley. He was in like I Think You Should Leave and some stuff.
Oh, this fucking guy.
Real character. Yeah, and he has a new movie called Rap World that is set in 2009 from the perspective of a bunch of people in the middle of nowhere who are like deluded into thinking that they're going to be great rappers, and it's about a night where they're like gonna definitely record their big album for sure that's like gonna take them to the top. And it was funny and it was very relatable, as anyone who has ever had like a dream that in retrospect doesn't make that much sense, but they were like really committed to it, like the kind of people who watched 8 Mile and were like, that's gonna be me, and I know I can do it. It was like if 8 Mile was a found footage movie.
If Eminem can do it, I mean, he's the first white boy to do it. When he went on that stage, it didn't matter what color he was.
Jesus Christ. What a
I'm
film.
Quoting the movie, Sam.
I know.
Thing in they put that in the trailers.
I watched it. I
hate that movie so much.
We can't do 8 Mile.
I'm sorry. Hey, you brought it up first. Move on. Fucking move on.
Anyway,
reap what you sow.
But yeah, so it's like, all recorded on era appropriate cameras because they got to document like this big night, because this is going to be effectively their 8 Mile, and nothing goes as planned, and it's great. And it reminded me of this outline that I wrote for a project I wanted to do that was very, very similar, which was like, I'm so interested in the way that like there were a bunch of stories and myths and ideas about how independent game development was as a thing during that same time period. And then Indie Game the movie came out, and then it was just like, as presented, became the dominant narrative for like what it meant to be an indie game developer. It came out in like 2012, 2013, depending on whether you're counting festival or full release. I don't remember what the exact split was, but like it was right as commercial indie game development was becoming like a mainstream conscious thing. But there was a time before. There were a lot of forums and weird corner spaces online that no longer exist, where people had dreams that didn't quite make sense, or in some cases, because like the Steam storefront wasn't accepting everyone, like there was no pathway to selling a game, but there were people who were like, fuck it, I'm gonna make games. This is a really confusing lead up. But I wanted to make a video that was basically set in, between 2009 and 2011. Someone being like, I'm going to make a video game, and I'm going to fucking like send it to Electronic Arts or something, and they're gonna publish me like those Naughty Dog guys do or whatever. And this is going to change my life. And you get to lean fully into the embarrassing shit that, like, as a beginner, when you're just starting to do something, like, you can convince yourself it's the greatest stuff in the world, even when it's super not. And I wanted to tie that to something that wasn't just like, here's making a game in 24 hours with era appropriate technology, but also like, because a game jam is like a pretty perfect way to set up conflict, unless you're Monster Energy. I think that I wanted to have a moment of breakdown where like the motivation for doing the game jam becomes a little bit clearer, because I am absolutely projecting here, because like when I was younger, part of the actual reason that I was so invested in like, I'm going to become a game developer, was because I was desperately seeking both community and escape. And I viewed becoming a game developer, quote unquote, like clearing the imagined gatekeepers. I viewed that as like the pathway forward to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that like getting to lean into that loads the cringe stuff in a way that I really like. And Rap World was like that for music. But yeah, the reason I bring this up is because there will be no versions of this made currently, but maybe in the future.